The wind howled through the empty plains of Wyoming, carrying with it the scent of snow and sorrow. Inside a lonely wooden cabin, a rancher named Elias Grant cradled his newborn daughter, her tiny cries piercing the silence of his grief. His wife, Clara, had died just 2 days after giving birth, her body too weak, her spirit too kind to stay in a world so unforgiving. Now Elias stood, lost and desperate, staring at the last bottle of milk that had long since gone sour. The baby's lips trembled, her face red from hunger. He didn't know what else to do. Elias was known across town as a quiet man, hard-working, solitary, with eyes that spoke of old pain. But now that pain had found a voice crying in his arms. The snow outside thickened, a white curtain sealing him from the world. He wrapped his baby girl, Grace, in his coat and whispered, "Hold on, little one. Papa's gonna find you milk." He saddled his tired horse, Blue, and rode through the storm toward town. The world was a blur of white and cold, but Elias didn't feel it anymore. All he could think about was the sound of his baby's cries echoing in his heart. At the general store, the shelves were bare. Storm deliveries delayed. The clerk shook his head sadly. "Ain't no milk left, Elias. Maybe try the east side. Heard there's a woman who keeps goats." Elias didn't hesitate. He rode east through the blizzard, following the faint light of a cabin tucked beneath a hill. He knocked, his frozen hand trembling, and the door creaked open. A woman stood there, a Chinese woman, small in frame but steady as stone. Her dark hair was tied back, her eyes calm but watchful. She looked at him and the baby in his arms. "You are freezing," she said softly, her accent thick but her words warm. "Come inside." Elias hesitated. In that time and place, Chinese immigrants were treated as outsiders, barely human to some. But desperation doesn't know prejudice. It only knows survival. He stepped inside. The cabin was modest, but there was a warmth in it that Elias hadn't felt in days. A fire crackled, herbs hung from the rafters, and in one corner a white goat bleated softly. The woman, Mei Lin, took the baby from his arms gently, as if she had been waiting for her. "She is hungry," Mei Lin said. "I can help." Elias watched as she milked the goat with practiced hands, poured it into a small pot, and warmed it by the fire. The smell of fresh milk filled the room. Grace quieted the moment the bottle touched her lips. Elias felt his chest tighten. Relief, grief, and something else he couldn't name. "Thank you," he whispered. Mei Lin nodded, her eyes softening. "You are welcome, Mr. Rancher. She is a strong baby." That night the storm worsened. Mei Lin insisted he stay. Elias slept by the fire, the baby beside him, while Mei Lin sat quietly, humming an old tune from her homeland. Her voice was gentle, like silk over broken glass. When Elias woke, morning light spilled through the cracks of the cabin. The storm had passed. Mei Lin handed him a bowl of broth. "You should eat," she said simply. He thanked her and noticed her hands, calloused, roughened by work, much like his. She lived alone, she explained. Her husband had died in a mining accident years ago. Since then, the townsfolk avoided her. "They say Chinese bring bad luck," she said with a sad smile. "But luck is just a word for what people do not understand." Elias felt a pang of shame. He too had once looked away from the Chinese workers in town, silent while others mocked them. But now, the woman everyone avoided had saved his child's life. For days, Elias returned to her cabin to fetch milk. Each visit brought a strange peace to his weary soul. Mei Lin always greeted him with a quiet nod, her hands busy, her heart unspoken. Grace grew stronger, smiling whenever Mei Lin held her. One evening, as Elias helped her fix a broken fence, he noticed how the sunset lit her face, soft and golden. "You ever think of leaving this place?" he asked. Mei Lin looked at the horizon. "Where would I go? Here I am a stranger. Anywhere else I am still Chinese." Elias said nothing. But something in him stirred, a recognition of loneliness that matched his own. Weeks turned into months. Elias started bringing her supplies from town: flour, fabric, even coffee. In return, she sent him home with milk, bread, and sometimes a smile that stayed in his memory long after he left. Rumors began to spread in town, the widowed ranchers keeping company with that Chinese woman. Some sneered, others warned him, "You'll ruin your name." But Elias didn't care. He had lost everything that mattered once before. He wasn't going to lose kindness too. One cold evening, as the wind howled again through the valley, Elias arrived at Mei Lin's cabin to find her coughing, her face pale. The fire had gone out. "Mei," he called, rushing to her side. She smiled weakly. "Just a fever. I will be fine." But Elias could see the truth. She was burning with illness. He lifted her gently and carried her to his horse. "You helped my child, now I'll help you." He took her back to his ranch, laid her in his late wife's bed, and cared for her through the night. Grace slept beside her, her tiny hand resting on Mei Lin's arm. Days passed. The fever broke. When Mei Lin woke, she found Elias asleep in the chair beside her, his hand still holding hers. "Why did you do this?" she whispered. He opened his eyes, his voice rough. "Because you gave me back my daughter's life. Because you gave me back mine." The spring came, painting the valley in green and gold. People whispered again, this time softer. They saw the widowed rancher walking through town with the Chinese woman beside him, the baby in her arms. Some frowned, others looked away, but a few smiled. On a quiet morning, beneath the old oak near the ranch, Elias asked her simply, "Stay with me and Grace, not for charity, but because this house feels right when you're in it." Mei Lin's eyes filled with tears. "You know what people will say. I've stopped listening to people." Elias said with a faint smile, "I only listen to my heart now." She nodded, and in that moment, the distance between east and west, between grief and love, between loneliness and belonging, vanished. Years later, travelers passing through the valley would hear of the rancher and the Chinese woman who raised a daughter together. They'd speak of their kindness, how they never turned anyone away hungry, no matter their color or creed. And when the wind howled through the plains at night, those who listened closely swore they could hear the faint sound of a baby's laugh and a woman's song, soft, eternal, and full of life.